What happened to the Amber Room is one of history's greatest mysteries. Sometimes dubbed the eighth wonder of the world, its disappearance is a puzzle that has occupied the minds of treasure hunters for decades. In this documentary, we look at its history and modern attempts at discovery. Find out what we have found and the competing theories surrounding where the Amber Room might be today. The Amber Room was an 18th century Prussian work of art began in 1701, richly decorated in amber, gold leaf, gemstones and mirrors, known as Gold of the North. The fossilized tree resin used to adorn the room was of such magnificence that modern historians estimate it would, even 300 years ago, have been worth the equivalent of $140 million, and perhaps as much as $500 million. The room was formerly located in Charlottenburg Palace and later the Berlin City Palace until 1716, when it was gifted by the Prussian king Frederick William I to his then ally Tsar Peter the Great of the Russian Empire, who installed it firstly in the Winter House of St. Petersburg before being moved to the Catherine Palace in Pushkin, where it was enlarged. It covered more than 55 square meters, 590 square feet, and contained over 6 tons, 13,000 pounds, of amber. In the past, the Amber Room was used by Catherine the Great as a gathering chamber, for trophy display by Alexander II, and as a private chamber by Tsarina Elizabeth. Today, we have a superb imitation Amber Room at Tsarskoe, Selo, to entertain tourists, itself costing as much as $11 million to complete, but nevertheless, a reproduction and the original is lost to history. Along with many treasures and works of art, the Amber Room was looted during the occupation by the Germans in 1941. It had been planned to move the panels to the east, but the amber was found to be too brittle. Despite a rudimentary covering of wallpaper in an attempt at concealment, it was discovered and removed from its walls in just 2 days. It was brought to Königsberg Castle, modern Kalingrad, for reconstruction and display. In the chaos that preceded the advance of the Red Army in 1945, plans to pack the room into crates for transport were disrupted when the civil administration fled the city. After this, the whereabouts of the Amber Room becomes a mystery. Its disappearance is an enigma, with no end of theories as to its final destination, or whether it has even survived. If the room survived the carnage of assault by land and air, you would think that there would be witnesses and clues to the movement and location of what must have been dozens of crates of heavy valuables. But there are few crumbs of information and much is supposition. The likeliest explanation is that it was destroyed either by the RAF raids in 1944 on Königsberg and its historic quarter, or by the Soviet shelling and damage to the castle between the 9th and 11th of April 1945. This was the view reached by the Soviet investigators sent to recover the treasure in May 1945. This theory seems to have weight because the remains of 3 out of 4 Florentine stone mosaics that had formed part of the room's decoration were found amongst the castle debris. But the question remains as to whether the Germans actually did manage to get the room out of the city's ruins before the Red Army arrived. Conspiracy theories abound as to whether substantially more of the Amber Room survived the damage, only to be secreted away, and, if not moved, perhaps still lying in a secret bunker under modern Kalingrad, built from the rubble of Königsberg. It's reported that the KGB carried out investigations in the labyrinth of tunnels and cellars under the rubble of the city, only to find nothing. The castle's thick walls still stood, having survived attack. In 1968, however, under order of Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev, The castle was demolished in its entirety, so halting rigorous modern examination that may have benefited from the use of technological methods not available decades ago. Limited archaeological excavations of the castle cellar have taken place. The center square of Kalingrad now lies on the site of the castle. Standing on the castle's filled-in moat is the House of Soviets, which was intended to be the central administration building. Continuation of development was stopped in the 1980s as the massive building gradually sank into the structurally unsound soil, stemming from the collapse of tunnels in the old castle's subterranean levels. One story that came to light followed a 1997 investigation by cultural heritage detectives in Germany who discovered the fourth Florentine mosaic being touted for sale on the art market. The panel was located to Bremen, but the seller, the son of a German soldier, had no idea of its origin. This tells us that some pieces may have survived, even if it were small elements secreted away clandestinely by individual soldiers returning to Germany from Russia in 1941. Some believe the room may have been aboard the evacuation ship Wilhelm Gustloff, which left Gdynia on the 30th of January 1945 and was then promptly torpedoed and sunk by a Soviet submarine. But no signs of it have been discovered by divers amongst its wreck. It's been claimed that the room could have been hidden in old salt mines on the Czech border or silver mines elsewhere. If that theory has any validity, there are many abandoned mines and tunnels in the south of Poland, once used by the German army, that could have performed the same function. Apparently, the notion that it could instead lie at the bottom of a lagoon in Lithuania came to nothing. Yet another, more recent avenue of investigation has centered on the Prince's Cave in the Ore Mountains near Dresden. The idea that modern Germany might be hiding the room has a degree of substance, because the Germans had planned a museum of world culture for Linz, Austria. Following a local tip-off and examination of local Stasi and KGB records, a group of investigators detected underground bunkers and tunnels using radar. The three amateur treasure hunters believe this cave complex, once used by German army scientists, could hide the Amber Room. The three sleuths believe they have uncovered evidence of an explosion to hide the entrance to the tunnels. They also point to marks on trees that could indicate use of steel ropes for hauling crates and suggest a train stopped at a rail line here in 1945. The group was seeking funds for further research in 2017, but it seems their search was futile or may have stalled due to lack of finance. If anyone knows if there has been any progress on the research of these tunnels, please share down in the comments. Closer to modern Kalingrad, the Murky Bunkers in northeast Poland has recently been touted as a location for investigation. Once a complex of reinforced bunkers and underground tunnels, this was the command center for German forces on the Eastern Front. Its location, about half an hour from Königsberg, and yet a geographically isolated and fortified location, may have made it a candidate as a hiding place, at least on a temporary basis for ongoing transit. The museum administrators, that now manage the complex's remains, believe that they may have found an entrance hatch to a tunnel using radar that may be hiding a secret. It's not clear that the hatch has been opened yet, and there may be difficulties obtaining permits to do so. There are, however, conflicting ideas concerning where the room could have been transported. Wuppertal in western Germany has been suggested on the basis that the German Gauleiter of East Prussia oversaw the room's transportation to the city. Yet it too was subject to heavy RAF raids, being near to Germany's industrial Ruhr Valley and close to advancing Allied forces, which could seem to detract from it having been considered a viable hiding place. Again, no concrete outcome seems to have come from this theory. It has been suggested that the extensive investigations carried out by the Soviets were no more than a ruse, having already concluded that the Amber Room had been destroyed. This theory holds that the KGB was happy for its disappearance to be believed, as it served as a useful propaganda tool to blame the West, rather than have the responsibility pinned on themselves in the changing political landscape, particularly as RAF raids had previously damaged the castle. Supporters of this view may point to the final demolition of the castle remains in 1968, which curtailed further research. This idea, however, is presumably no more than supposition. The search for the Amber Room has been clouded by controversies, which may be no more than unfortunate coincidences or some darker force at play. Firstly, it's told that Alfred Rode, the director of Königsberg Castle Museum, died of typhus just as the KGB was investigating the room. Another story goes that a Russian intelligence officer known as General Gustloff met an untimely end in a car crash after talking to a journalist about the Amber Room in 1992. Finally, there is the grim tale of former German soldier George Steen, an Amber Room hunter killed in a Bavarian forest in 1987. Despite such a diverse range of hypotheses and several investigations that have led nowhere, the location of the Amber Room remains a mystery. But if it's ever discovered, modern estimates suggest its value may be well over $500 million. That leaves two questions for you to answer in the comments. Do you think that the Amber Room was destroyed? Or, if you believe it still exists, where do you think it's hidden?